It is part of, I think, part of the mindset that we always want. We're greedy. People are greedy. They want more. And so, a beautiful day like today, I mean, it's not uncommon to have teenagers going for a hike, and then they say, well, if we only smoke some marijuana, it's going to get better. So that people have this as a kind of form of greediness, is that people are not satisfied with the current experience, but they always want more. So alcohol is a kind of a false promise. And the Japanese have a name for a type of cigarette. The name of it is called false hope, or short hope. And so it's like, gives you some sense of there's something really better that's going to come around on the horizon. And there's always that sense of like short hope that if I do this, it's even going to get better. What I discovered in the research at Bellevue Psychiatric Hospital is that people are getting addicted to their style of coping. And so the heroin users were compulsively withdrawing from stimulation, and the people who were using amphetamine were getting really compulsive about actively participating in their environment. The ways of coping with stress. So the differences between the different types of users was that they had different ways of coping with stress. And so the drug of choice is harmonious with your characteristic way of reducing stress. That's why people choose drugs. If it fits in how you cope, it's like a hand in a glove. That becomes the style that you. So people were getting addicted to the style of coping, and that involves the changes of brain chemistry. So they were doing that before they even took drugs. And when they discovered a drug, it fit like a hand in glove. Alcohol is a sedative. It slows down neurotransmission. But how come people get wild when they drink alcohol? They steal and they commit crimes and they become sexually harmful to other people. And well, the part of the reason is that the first part of the brain that gets sedated is the cortex, which is the reasoning and thinking part of the brain. So what you're left with is a reptile brain, which disinhibits you, and you can become more sexual and more aggressive. If you drink more, then you can sedate the instinctual part of the brain, and you'll fall asleep or you'll pass out. So alcohol can cover a wide range of just about any range of activity, and so it's very appealing to people because it has so many different ways of causing excitement or relaxation. Addiction is behavior characterized by compulsion, loss of control, and continuation despite harmful consequences. And notice I didn't use the word drug. So behavior characterized by compulsion, loss of control, and continuation despite harmful consequences. And the consequences are in your social, economic, or health functions. So when people become compelled by any kind of behavior, we can call that addiction, when it leads to harmful consequences. So if a kid is playing video games, let's say, for like 10 hours a day, and the mother comes to me and she said, my kid is addicted. I said, well, is he coming to dinner? Yeah. Is he getting good grades in school? Yes. Is he has he have friends? Yes. Is he good with his family? Can he stop when you ask him to pay attention? Yes. I said, well, maybe he's going to be the next Walt Disney. I don't know that he's addicted. I mean, the behavior is always, it's not the amount of time you spend on it, it's the idea of compulsion and loss of control and harmful consequences. So if you're not having harmful consequences, then it's not appropriate to talk about addiction. One thing that in Australia, which I find, they're pretty irreverent in Australia, so it's fun to work with them sometimes, but one of the things that they ask the students is, what is your idiot number? I mean, what's your idiot number? And I like to ask my students that to challenge them. I say, when do you start really getting stupid with alcohol? What's your idiot number? Is it 2 or 3 or 4? And just to bring people to an awareness of what do they really want out of this experience, right? And then when they start thinking about, well, my idiot number is 4, that's when I start getting stupid. And then it starts to help them to start rearranging how they're going to go out for an evening. And maybe they're going to have just 1 or 2, and because they don't want to hit their idiot number. So to bring people to an awareness of what that's about. And I think everybody's different. I mean, you have to sort of take into account the autonomy of the individual. I mean, let's face it, alcohol, not only does it create social problem behaviors, but it's also, in large doses, it's carcinogenic. It's cancerous. And so then the question is, what do people want? And, if maybe they don't really worry so much about colon cancer or prostate cancer or breast cancer. And maybe they don't have a genetic risk factor for that. So it depends on, I think more and more the responsibility is going to fall on the individual to make their own decisions about what they're looking for out of this experience. I think alcohol is here to stay. I don't think it should be made illegal. I think people have to be more aware of what they're getting involved in with the drug. It's a strong drug. You know, if you think about what works, I mean, one of the famous researchers in the field of alcoholism, George Valiant, and he interviewed people who got better, who had problems with alcohol, and he didn't do a whole study of giving them different treatments. He interviewed hundreds of people who had problems with alcohol. He said, "How did you get better?" And he asked them, and he came up with some ideas about what makes people better. And one of them is an inspirational group, where they have people that they can feel inspired by. Another one was new relationships, where they're not getting drunk with the same old friends again. A third one is a compulsory supervision, where they have some support where they're, people are keeping an eye on what they're doing. And so if you think about that, new relationships, substitute dependence, compulsory supervision, inspirational group, those are the things that people sort of can help them to really overcome the compulsion to use alcohol. Well, if you think about all the things that are happening in Iceland, there's a supervision because the kids are being expected to be home at a certain hour, the coach is keeping an eye on them. There's inspirational groups, the kids are having fun with other kids. There's a substitute dependence because they're depending on the sports or the activity rather than having the drugs. And so they're really thriving in a way that people who overcome alcohol do, but I mean, it's not consciously orchestrated that way. But that's really a lot of what's happening, is that there are really very positive sort of group activities with a lot of supervision, and they have other things to depend on rather than alcohol and drugs. So this works on a large societal scale.